Welcome to The Explainer. Artificial intelligence is on the verge of completely changing medicine. But, before we can really have an AI doctor, we have to tackle a huge question. How do we make absolutely sure it's safe, reliable, and fair for every single patient? Just imagine an AI that could tell your doctor you're at high risk for a complication before it even happens. It sounds incredible, right? But it all hangs on that one single question. It's not about how powerful the code is, it's about whether we can actually trust it. So let's dive into the human-led process that makes that trust possible.
All right, first things first. To really get how we audit AI in healthcare, we all need to be on the same page. So let's get some of the basic terms down.
So, at the very top, you've got artificial intelligence, or AI. Just think of this as the big, broad umbrella. It's any system that's designed to mimic human thinking. Things like reasoning, learning, and making decisions.
Now, nestled under that AI umbrella, you'll find machine learning. And this is where it starts to get really cool. Instead of a programmer writing a bunch of if-then rules, we just feed the machine tons and tons of data and let it figure out the patterns on its own. It's a lot like how we learn from experience.
And if we zoom in one level deeper, we hit deep learning. This is a superpowered form of machine learning that uses these complex structures called neural networks, which are kind of inspired by the human brain. They are amazing at finding really subtle, complex patterns, which makes them a total game changer for analyzing things like medical scans. Okay, so now that we've got the lingo down, let's see how it all comes together in a really high-stakes, real-world situation, trying to predict if a patient is likely to be readmitted to the hospital right after being sent home.
The most common way to do this is something called supervised learning. And the flashcard analogy here is just perfect. You're basically showing the computer thousands of digital flashcards. On one side, you've got a patient's data. On the other, you've got the real-world outcome. Were they readmitted, yes or no? The AI just studies these over and over until it learns to make a really good guess for new patients it's never seen before.
Now, building one of these models isn't like flipping a switch. It's a whole rigorous journey. You start by defining exactly what you want to achieve, then you gather and clean up the data, train the model, and then you test it a lot. You check its accuracy, and just as important, you test it for fairness before it ever goes live. And even then, the job's not done. You have to keep monitoring it forever. So what's actually on these flashcards the AI is studying? Well, it's the whole shebang. We're talking demographics like age and gender, a person's entire medical history, all their lab results, and even things we call social determinants of health, factors in their life that we know can affect their well-being. The model takes all of this in to make a single prediction.
Okay, so we've got this powerful predictive tool. But just because it's powerful, that doesn't mean it's right. So how do we hold it accountable? How do we make sure it isn't accidentally doing more harm than good?
This is exactly where the audit comes in. Think of an AI audit as a deep, systematic quality inspection. It's not just about checking if the code runs without crashing. The goal is to prove the model is reliable, to make sure it's fair for everybody, to demand that we can understand why it's making the calls it does, and to check that it's actually making a positive difference. So, what's on an auditor's checklist? You might be picturing someone digging through thousands of lines of complex code. But here's the surprising part. The most critical piece of a really solid audit is the documentation.
It really is that simple. If you don't have a detailed, transparent paper trail, there's no way to have a trustworthy audit. This documentation is the hard evidence that proves the model was built and tested responsibly every single step of the way.
And this paper trail has to cover everything. Under data, auditors want to see where it all came from, its entire history. For the model, they check every version and every setting. And then you get to the really crucial stuff. They look at fairness reports to hunt for bias against different groups. And they examine explainability reports, which use special tools to show exactly why the model made a specific prediction for a specific person.
And look, this isn't just theory. A really cool study from Stanford Healthcare shows exactly how this focus on meticulous records can lead to a huge breakthrough.
So the researchers built a model using just the standard clinical data. Then they added a new source of information, one that's often overlooked, the audit logs from a patient's electronic health record. All this does is track how doctors and nurses are interacting with a patient's file. And the result? Just look at this chart. That second bar is noticeably higher. That represents a significant jump in the model's predictive accuracy.
all because they included better documentation.
So what's the big takeaway here? It's that creating AI we can truly trust in medicine isn't some sci-fi fantasy about a perfect autonomous machine. No, it's a deeply human process, one that's built on discipline, on transparency, and on a shared commitment to doing things the right way.
This means auditors have to insist on models that can explain themselves. They have to proactively hunt for hidden biases, not just wait for them to cause a problem. And this process can't happen in a bubble. You have to involve everyone, the data scientists, the doctors, and yes, even the patients. It's about being constantly vigilant.
Ultimately, the goal here isn't to create an AI doctor that works all by itself. The real goal is to build these incredibly powerful and reliable tools that act as a co-pilot for human experts, making them even better at what they do, all while being held accountable through a transparent, human-led process.
And that really leaves us with this final thought. As we weave AI deeper and deeper into our healthcare, maybe the most important question isn't how smart is it or how powerful is it. The real question, the one that guarantees safety and fairness for all of us, is simply, how do we know we can trust